Hey everybody, Stu Smith here, going live. I hope you guys are well today. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. That means we are just going live, taking some questions, giving some answers. And while you guys hop on here, let me chat a little about an article I just wrote this weekend about getting through training. And that's tough training. Anything that requires you to take a fitness test to enter, and then the following part of that training is going to be really challenging, specific uh, type of training that you need to be making time for. However, as a coach, I have learned this years ago that my job is to basically just prepare people as best I can for them to have all the elements of fitness that they need to handle these specific demands on their body, push them in a way where they build some mental toughness. And there's multiple ways to do that because you're going to have to rely on your toughness probably more than anything else when you start doing training that starts early in the morning, ends late at night, day after day, mile after mile, variety of skills needed from strength and power, speed and agility, grip, endurance, run, ruck, swim, muscle stamina, flexibility, mobility, and also learning how to fuel yourself to be able to be your best when you do that. That's what a coach does, prepares you for all of that. However, be honest with you, it's kind of difficult to prepare people for the actual challenges of being wet and sandy all day, getting negative feedback near constantly, or depending on which selection you're in, no feedback whatsoever. So you're just wondering if you're meeting the standard or not. Um, you know, just being tired, hungry, all of those things just have a way of beating you down. I call it the daily grind. So when I say to people, here's the training plan to get to the training because you got to ace this fitness test, regardless of what that fitness test is, you should specifically train for it so you can ace it on any day. Then you got to train specifically for that selection. And what does that mean? That means countless hours of training in the specifics of what you are doing in your future. And that's really phase one and phase two of tactical fitness. So if you guys just coming on over here on Instagram, just got LinkedIn. I don't know why it was moving so slow over there. The beginning of this video is up on YouTube channel, and it'll be up there, after this uh, Q&A session as well. But anyway, I'm just talking about it is your job to get through the training. It is not a coach's job. A coach does not push you through training. You have to do that yourself. And that's where often your toughness comes in. I tell people quite often before they go through Hell Week or they're starting their training in whatever activity that is, where it is an assessment and their performance matters to a point of whether or not they're going to continue a dream of service in that profession, is quite frankly this. There's not enough time to get stronger, not enough time to get smarter, not enough time to get faster. Um, but the one thing you can do right now is get tougher. And when you need it the most, remember that. remember when you're tired, when you're falling behind, you just get pissed off and you get tougher, right? That's all you can do in those last 24 hours prior to starting, some of the toughest training you've ever had to endure. Is just get tougher. And remember that, whenever you're going through your training, you're feeling like crap towards the end. Somebody's beating you. You know what? Get a little tougher. Try to pass that guy. Those are just little ways to make sure you're exceeding the standard when you're starting on these fitness preparation to serve in very challenging professions. So, well, I will tell you this. If you guys have questions, send them. If not, I have a few that have come in by email, and I can read those if you guys don't have any questions yet. So, someone asked about a deload week and says, Hope all is well. This is a kid that joined us recently. I'm coming up on 12 weeks straight of training, and a deload week could be beneficial for both recovery and performance in the future. I would agree. I've never done a deload week. How should I structure it from day to day workouts? I've read somewhere that simply doing a long, slow swim, long, slow run should work for it, but wanted to check with you first. Well, here's the thing. A deload is a decrease in everything: volume, intensity, weight. So you can make this look like repetitions. You can make this look however you want. My advice would be a 50% decrease in running volume, in lifting of weights, in repetitions of calisthenics. Um, distance in miles, time of a workout. If you're used to doing 2-hour workouts, do a 1-hour workout. But really decrease the intensity by 50% as well. Something that you can, if you want to just do a normal workout, just reduce the intensity, cut the time. You don't get it all done, great. You've created a deload. A deload is nothing more than a a reduction. Now, you can take a whole week off if you want. I don't recommend doing that. I never recommend being still because motion is lotion, and you definitely want to not get stiff and feel weak. And I tell you, a week after of not running sometimes makes me feel like I've never run before. Um, so you might want to maintain some cardio. Maybe instead of running, do non-impact cardio. That's another way to deload the stresses of a week. Something I have done in the past, at least in the last 10 years, um, is I've done a week of mobility days where every day is a 5 minutes of cardio, non-impact, 5 minutes of stretching or foam rolling, and I adjusted it just a little bit to add in 5 minutes of some upper body activity. On an upper body day, I do some pull ups and push ups and dips or, dumbbells, for 5 minutes, not max reps, just getting some reps in, feeling like I'm doing something. And then the next day, I do the same thing: 5 minutes of cardio, 5 minutes of stretching, foam rolling, 5 minutes of legs, squats, lunges, leg press, leg extensions, RDLs, something like that, and just limit my time to that activity for 5 minutes. And I repeat that 4 to 5 times. Let me tell you, that's a great way to deload, right? You're doing a little bit of cardio, getting some stretching in there, some motion, and you're getting a little bit of activity in there as well. So that's the way I like to set up my deload weeks. But it's really up to you. If you're running a lot, my advice is deload from running. Like We just did a deload week last week in our middle of our lift cycle. So what we did is we just didn't lift all week, but we did calisthenics and we ran a little bit. Mainly is what we do in our deloads is we shift priorities. So right now in our winter lift cycle, we are focused on gaining strength, some power, speed, and agility. But we're maintaining our cardio, run, ruck, swim. Now, we do that a little bit less than if that was our primary focus, but our primary focus right now is put on strength, put on some mass. Some guys need to put on some muscle, need to gain some weight, need to gain some strength. Not everybody does, but if you're in a winter lift cycle and that's your primary goal, a deload, here's how we make it. We flip it upside down, so we are deloading from that week, maintaining now our calisthenics and cardio. Not crazy volume, just maintaining it a little bit. The workouts are a little shorter. Instead of hour and a half, 2 hours, they're probably down below an hour, maybe just an hour. And then we do some swimming later on. So that's how we do it. And now, if it's in the middle of the summer and we are peaking on our running miles, let's say we build up to 35, 40 miles a week, and we're hitting it, high rep calisthenics at the same time, and I see that we're getting to that point where people are feeling like they need a deload. We flip it around, and now we do a week of cut the running in half or less even, and the reps are cut down, and we just add some weights because we're trying to maintain some of those gains that we had from the previous cycle. So there's multiple ways to do deloads. And in fact, I've written a couple articles on it, and I'll put it right here for you. You do deload week, Stu Smith. I think I wrote it for. There's a couple things. Jeff and I did a podcast on it, and you can talk about that or read about that. Sorry. In fact, let me see where we go here. All right, so I got that one over there. Here's one. Once again, just Google deload. And then I did another one for military.com. You can check out this one. This is another deload week article. And it basically just rehashes everything I just mentioned. You know, so all right, if you guys got any questions over here on Instagram, send them. Happy to take them. None over here on YouTube either. Man, you guys are not showing up like you have recently. Wonder what's going on. Busy day. All right, let's see. Another question I got that I thought was pretty good. Let me see if I can find it. All right, here we go. Sorry, computer's moving a little slow. Okay, so here's a good one. Maybe a recruiter problem. Okay, so reaching out to recruiters or not getting back to me. I've worked with a recruiter in the past. And where I used to live, I'm about to move into the DC, Virginia area, working with two men in that area who have been great so far. You know what? Here's the problem with recruitings and recruiting districts is while there are standards and there are processes that are usually universal, everybody's a little bit different. I will tell you the Philadelphia region where we are out of here, they're in districts like you have, New York and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and Richmond is like Richmond goes from uh, all the way up to Virginia, East Virginia, all the way around to Southern Maryland and into D.C. Whereas Philly is uh, Philly and Baltimore and Delaware, a little bit of where we are. I mean, we're just at a line. In fact, where I am in Severna Park, Maryland, I'm 10 miles away from Annapolis, and Annapolis is in the Richmond district, but I am in the Philadelphia district. So I see the differences between recruiting stations quite often. And unfortunately, it really comes down to people. We've had some great people in the Philly region, luckily, for the last 5 years that have just been off the charts. Um, they even like recognize me as a helper. They gave me one of these things last year, the Heavy Hitter Award, just to say thanks for my volunteerism. Um, so, yeah, they like what I do. They appreciate what I do for them as far as sending people um, to me and preparing them for various activities. Usually, they will send to me anybody that needs to take that Navy PST. So that means SEAL, SWIC, EOD, diver, um, SARC, or SOIDC now. Trying to think who else takes it. I guess that's about it. Uh, but anyway, so they're really good. I really like them. They have been very proactive. I've seen them turn around and get a dude to boot camp in less than a month. Um, for instance, a guy he had his paperwork in because he tried to go to SOAS, or he went to SOAS, didn't get selected, and he went to the recruiter's office and said, "Here's all my paperwork. I want to enlist now and get out as soon as possible." And they're like, "Well, we have a spot open in November. Do you want to go in November?" And this was probably last week of October. And when he found out, and he had to go to MEPS, got through that, took a PST, done, boom. He was out of here before Thanksgiving. So, there are people who can really get it done. And basically, my whole spiel about all this is that don't look for consistency throughout all the regions. Unfortunately, it really comes down to the individuals that are really motivated to help you get to and at least get to the type of training you want to do. And some of them are just flat out wrong with how the process works. Either they are lying to you or they don't know the process. And that's unfortunate because I've seen some people still within the last 5 years get told, I shouldn't even say 5 years, probably 3 years, get told that, not here in this region, but in other regions, that you take the PST at boot camp and then find out if you can go to buds. That's not how it works. Whether it's buds, EOD, diver, all of those things are predetermined before you go to boot camp and you get a contract for those jobs. And anybody that tells you otherwise is one of those two categories. They're lying to you, or they just don't know the process. Maybe they're new. I'll give them a benefit of the doubt. So anyway, what is going on? The question is, training on the PST. I am not going to go to the recruiter's office to go through MEPS and become delayed entry program until I'm crushing this PST. Looks like with his scores, he's working only on a few elements, maybe the push-ups, sit-ups, everything else looks good. He's just asking, what do I think about that? Well, I absolutely. You have just parroted my number one piece of advice I give to people. and that is don't even talk to a recruiter until you have self administered a fitness test of that what you're about to take, the swim, the push-ups, the sit-ups, the pull-ups, the mile-and-a-half run, or this is just for the Navy, whatever your fitness test is, the IFT for the Air Force, recon tests, all of those things. You want to be really above average prepared to get to the training. And if you need to take that fitness test in order to get a contract, you should know long before you take this fitness test for real in front of an instructor that you can pass or fail it. Right? It shouldn't be, oh, what's the PST? Okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you fail it miserably, then guess what? You're now on this perpetual loop of failing every week, every week, every week, until eventually you might pass, which is hopeful. But all you've done in that whole time of being in the delayed entry program is just get good at getting to the training. Congratulations, you got a contract. But now you're not really prepared to get through the training. And if you think boot camp and Bud's prep prepares you to get through the training, not really. Bud's prep is really just kind of get you back into shape after boot camp got you out of shape. So you need to be thoroughly prepared. That's why I always coach get to the training, practice getting through the training, doing specific events of that future training itself, and then move on from there. Then go talk to a recruiter. And in that time of while you're waiting for a ship date, you can start focusing more on getting through the training. You might have 3-4 months to be able to do that, and that's great. Then you stay in shape as best you can at boot camp. Next thing you know, you're ready to go when you go to prep. Just got to touch things up a little bit, get used to the lay of the land, and go crush whatever program you're in. That's the sequence. But that's a good question. Let's see what else we got. All right, so here's another one. If you guys have questions, send them. Are you guys coming in now better purely objectively in terms of PST score times compared to previous generations? Let's see here. Yeah, I would say they are. It's funny. I had a friend of mine who is a BUDS instructor say, you know what? Here's the problem. We're getting better in shape quitters. So they are done really well crushing the PST, but they didn't really focus on anything else, if that makes any sense. So the ones that are, showing up to BUDS, crushing the PST, that's great. But once again, you got to start training to get through the training as well. If you neglected 4-mile runs and 2-mile swims with fins and treading and, all the pool skills, all of those things, load bearing, have you done any lifting at all, to prepare for the load bearing activities of logs and boats? And, doesn't have to be super heavy lifting, just run around with a ruck on in the soft sand is sufficient, or at least helpful. So yeah, I would say PST scores are better. I would, in fact, I would say this. The PST scores now from the average enlisted guy are what the officers were getting back in the 90s. 9-minute run, 9-minute swim, 80 to 100 push-ups and sit-ups, and 20 pull-ups. That's pretty much the standard. Every now and then you'll have plus or minus above and under. But the standards are great coming in. It's just maybe they didn't prepare specifically enough. And then, it really comes down to you as the title of this show is it really comes down to you getting through it and being able to handle all the stresses that are your training. It's a grind. Early mornings, late nights, fueling, trying not to get sick, dealing with being sick while you're there. Do you go to medical? Do you suck it up? There's some drama there. Are you dealing with family issues back at home on top of it? There's more drama. Um, you know, it's just your focus needs to be on that and being able to handle negative feedback coming at you and net wet and sandy and discomfort and being tired, failing. You're going to fail things, right? And you got to do it again. Can you pass it the second time? Can you pass it the third time? If you can't pass it the third time, chances are you're done, right? So you're going to be learning skills, through a fire hose. And you got to be able to do that. So your ability to learn is also paramount. So anyway, that's what I talk about, getting to and through training, as well as, there's going to be a time when it's up to you. And none of your preparation really matters. It comes down to just how tough you are and how quickly you can learn. That's a good question, though. I like that. Bro, what is on top of your class photo? That is my class crest. You talking about this one right here? That's my class crest from the Naval Academy. Class of 91, class crest. This is my Bud's class picture. These paddles, by the way, are not my paddles. They're paddles of students who sent them to me. This picture right here is a picture of folks bought me for Christmas, some of my students. And then as you go up, you can see more gifts from students. Most of these are students' gifts. Like the Never Quit thing's a gift. This painting here of going through the surf zone's a gift. These are my plaques from different teams. Some other stuff, a painting that students got me. So a lot of these are students' gifts. That's what's on top, but it's just my wall behind my desk, and that's what I do. Somebody says, been struggling with water confidence. Any advice on building that calm carbon dioxide buildup? Yeah. Um, exhale a little bit. Here's the deal. A lot of times that carbon dioxide buildup that you're talking about when you're holding your breath is real. And sometimes it's not the lack of oxygen that's crushing you at that moment, it's the buildup of CO2. So exhale a little bit. That's just one of the techniques we use, like when we're doing underwaters or whatever, holding our breath for whatever reason, tying knots, is, exhale a little bit because it's not the lack of oxygen. It's the buildup of CO2. So I'm seeing one of the reasons why I'm not getting many questions over here on YouTube is it's not on YouTube. Well, appreciate that, Tom. I'm not sure what happened to that connection, but I usually go live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram all at the same time. Must have been a disconnect somewhere. Thanks for that heads up, Tom. Good morning, Stu. I got your PST book, and now I'm crushing the PST. I'm getting ready to start talks with the recruiter. Okay, cool. Which program do you recommend next steps to head off to basic? Yeah, I would go with the next one in line. You got the phase 1 PST book, go with phase 2 and 3, because that's going to be specifically geared towards that bud selection, that type of selection training. Yeah, I would go with phase 2 and 3. It's more of an updated version than the 12 weeks to buds. Yeah, I hate to say it, but not that the 12 weeks to buds is a bad book. It's just something I wrote 25 years ago, and these phase one, phase two, something I rewrote 3 years ago. Um, so I have changed as a coach as well as Buds has changed as well. So um, I just think that one's a better one for you. It's not a bad one. It's not, if you have time, do it. I think it's a great way to train. However, you're going to, depending on your athletic history, let's say you're a strength guy, I would say, yeah, 12 weeks Bud's ideal for you because it's all calisthenics and cardio. However, if you need some strength, a cycle, might be something like this when you're mixing in some strength training and still trying to maintain your PST. How's that look? Because that answers that question, how do you mix in strength training when I'm also trying to crush the PST or maintain my PST? Um, let's see here. Morning, Stu. Oh, yeah, I got that one. Do you think FBI PFT needs to change? If so, what would your recommendations be? Good question. Here's the problem. Most of these, and the military is the same way. Most of these fitness tests, when you're dealing with things like push-ups, sit-ups, a 300-meter sprint, let's say a fast run, a shuttle run, and a mile and a half, really not challenging you in ways that probably make sense for your profession. Basically, they are testing your health and wellness primarily and your ability to run and keep moving when your heart rate's high, if that makes any sense. So, I mean, there's scientific names for it: lactate threshold, anaerobic capacity. All of those things are really what they're testing. There's no strength training, there's no um, speed and agility unless you have a shuttle run. Um, I guess 300-meter sprint would be some speed, but it's fairly limited. Um, Not everybody full sprints it, if that makes sense, and you can still pass it without a full sprint. So anyway, yeah, do they need to change it? I don't know. I mean, it seems to be sufficient for um, a health and wellness test. It's not sufficient for maybe testing what you're going to be going through when you go through the academy and be an agent, if that makes sense. So if they want to align those, maybe they should. If they're just wanting to test your health and wellness to be able to, be acceptable, have a certain level of fitness before you start the academy, and the academy itself is built towards building a better agent, then that's a different story. Um, but I definitely think there should be an exercise protocol testing before you get into these jobs, because there should be a level of fitness before you start boot camp and police academies and selections, especially. What that level of fitness is should vary between services and the profession itself that you're going to be doing. But I mean, overall, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Do I think it's the best one out there? No. Do I think it's a good health and wellness test? Sure. Right? Could it be better? Absolutely. Um, any recommendations where I can purchase a good ruck weighted pack? You know what? My advice would be um, go to eBay first just to see, or Facebook, whatever the Facebook store they have, um, and just see if anybody local or near you. eBay could be different, of course, or just selling them, because you may find that you can get a nice ruck, um, pretty cheap. Yeah, I would say I probably have, in my years, I bought 2 or 3 rucks and weight vests just from eBay. They got tired of using them. I wasn't, and I, made out, saved $100 for doing that. So that's where most of my guys get it from. Um, so try that. I mean, there's surplus stores you might be able to find, depending on what you are preparing for. My advice would be this: do a little research on the type of ruck that you're going to be issued when you're there. Might be an Alice pack, might be a Molly pack, not sure. Depending on the service branch, you're going to be getting one of those two primarily, um, and get that. You can find them. You can find them online and probably pay a premium for it. But if you want to try to save money, you can also try the other option. Max ruck weight to train before buds. Should you train to the amount you'll carry at buds, teams, or just certain amount of weight, 15 kilograms? Well, here's the deal. It used to be you were rucking in first phase. Now you're not. Now, if you're going to SOAS, going officer, you will ruck a 9 miler with about 50 pounds in your backpack. Highly recommend 50 pounds in your backpack building up to 9 miles if you're going to go to SOAS. That's just one of those tests you need to know and you need to prepare for. You don't really ruck in first phase, but you do a lot of load bearing. And if you don't have a log and a boat to carry, you should put on a ruck and get used to rucking hills or soft sand if you have it. We're lucky we have a nice little hill where we run. In fact, did it this morning, and we have a beach to run. It's only a mile long on the Chesapeake Bay, but it's soft sand and a mix of hard pack. And we run that every Friday. So, and we ruck it too. So that's where I would be, somewhere between 40 and 50 pounds at least. Or I shouldn't say at least. 50 pounds is sufficient. Now, once you're in the military, you're probably going to be getting more, but your workouts are going to change too. You're probably going to do more strength training and develop, some strength versus just high amounts of cardio that is needed to get through these type of selection programs. So you'll still do cardio, you just might rely more on strength. I call that phase 3 of tactical fitness, that is going to be specifically designed for you doing your job. Phase 1 and 2 look completely different from phase 3. It's just the way it is. I haven't really seen a phase 1, 2, and 3 go perfectly together as far as being the same. But that's why we break it up into 3 groups. You got to take a fitness test. That fitness test may not make any sense for what you're about to go endure. Just the way it is. You got to learn how to do it. Phase 2, that is specifics. Specifics to that test you need to practice. Specific for that selection you need to practice. Then phase 3, that's your job, right? You need to get in shape for your job. Whatever that job entails, you need to be doing it and preparing yourself for that. And also longevity, right? If you're going to be in this job for 20 years, you're going to be older longer than you are younger. So you need to plan accordingly and do things that actually make sense to not being injured all the time. So that's where phase 3 comes in. Stress mitigation, flexibility, mobility is very important. All right, let's see. Does Bud's candidates wearing helmets for boats make it easier? Silly question. Um, well, you're less bruised, but they only do it for one event. Like normally when you're just running on, with the boat, or you are paddling with the boat, you don't have head protection. Only place they do it is for rock portage, where they are paddling the boats to these rocks right in front of the Hotel del Coronado, and they are, as a team, coming right up to the rocks, taking their boat over those rocks and to the other side. They call it rock portage. So that is one of those events where they decided not long ago to give head protection. I will tell you this, my buds class, we did not have helmets when we went through. And I'm not bragging like that was better or we were tougher. Um, but somebody said, yeah, somebody's going to get hurt, slam their head up against these rocks. And they probably weren't wrong. I'm sure the reason why they are wearing hats right now is somebody hurt their head up against some rocks during rock portage. It can happen. So just trying to prevent an injury. But it's only done during that. It's not done during your 4 weeks of first phase when you're running boats on your head. Sawyer says, I can't stay, but wanted to say your simulated log PT workout was a crusher. Thanks. Yeah, that's a fun one. If you go check out Sam Baby Devil Murph, in fact, I will pull it up for you. Sam Baby Devil Murph, it's a classic already. It is a Murph mixed with a log PT simulator mixed with a Devil's Mile. And I'll put it in right here. All right. Thanks for the help. Keep up the good work. You're welcome. For the boys who graduated SQT, which would you suggest more nowadays? SEAL Team 5 or ADV? Whatever. SDV is probably what you meant. It really depends on the person. It's hard to get SDV right out of the SQT now. But if you wanted to really dive and you love being underwater, it's a good job for you. If you don't, do more of the classic SEAL team. And it really depends on most people pick, they put in their dream sheet. They usually pick their top 3, and usually those top 3 are even numbers or odd numbers. And that would be East Coast or West Coast. So it's not really a SEAL Team 5 SDV choice. It's 1, 3, or 5. Some people who put SDV first may get looked at the possibility of going to SDV. Really depends on the needs of the teams where you're going to go, not so much where you want to go. However, if you put in all even numbers, chances are you're probably going to go East Coast. You put in all odd numbers, chances are you're going to go to the West Coast. Yeah, SDV is just, they've been doing some really cool stuff that nobody talks about. So that's all I can really say on that one and care to say. But it's been all throughout, last 25, 30 years, they've been doing cool stuff. Is the operation tempo different versus East Coast and West Coast? No. I mean, everybody deploys, everybody goes somewhere, everybody works up to a deployment. It just depends on where they're deploying is what really is the difference. If there's a war, everybody's going to that war, regardless of what side they're on. If there's places where we need to just be, then East Coast teams are going to be, Europe, Africa. They may dip into the Middle East a little bit, and then you got West Coast teams, Pacific, and into the Middle East. So there you go, and some South America as well. All right, last question. I gotta go. Currently in depth, contracted, ship date in a month and a half. What should I focus on training more? My advice is this: it depends. It depends on your weaknesses. Is what you should focus on. Is that more miles? Then add more miles. Is it strength? Is it flexibility, mobility? You should be adding flexibility, mobility. That's going to help you with swimming and treading anyway, so that's a no-brainer. And then you ask hypertrophy training. If you need to gain weight, then you need to build some muscle, put on some mass. It really depends right now when you're a month, 2 months away from shipping, making sure you don't have any weaknesses is your number one goal. Maintaining all your strengths, work on those weaknesses, whatever those are. Endurance, strength, pool skills, all of those. Could be all of them, could be one of them. But that's what I would do. It will make your life a whole lot better if you're not having to dip into your mental toughness just to get through a weakness that you underdeveloped. Which you're going to have to eventually anyway, even on your strengths. Sometimes you just need some mental toughness to get through the day. That's why I'm saying, as the title of this show is, it's up to you. It's up to you to get through this training in the end. You can prepare very well, but in the end, it's up to you to endure what you have to endure. All right, folks, I got to go. I got to figure out why I'm not on YouTube today. So apologize for that. But I'll be back tomorrow. We'll show some CSS videos. Hopefully I'll be up on YouTube by then. So until then, I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.